It's projected that by the year 2050, more than half the world's population will live in the Asian region. Income levels will rise and a majority will live in urban areas. This will add enormous pressure on food production systems, especially the livestock sector.
At present, meat production is about 250 million tons per year. We project that future demand, to meet future demand, we need to produce 450 million metric tons by year 2050. It's a big challenge, but we have to meet this demand, otherwise there will be acute shortage of animal products, and even social unrest might be occurred.
To discuss the implications of these challenges and possible ways forward, a regional livestock policy forum was recently held in Bangkok, Thailand. Over 70 participants attended, representing a broad range of stakeholders, government officials, national and international agencies, private sector organizations, and research institutions. The forum focused on 3 major themes: supporting the livelihoods and income generation opportunities for smallholder livestock producers, environmental considerations for Asian livestock, and the increasing risk of zoonotic diseases.
Livestock is not only producing milk, meat and eggs. It is supporting the livelihood of the rural farmers, and it is empowering the women and creating employments.
Now Myanmar attracting more foreign investment, so more FDI is coming to Myanmar, but there's a big debate here in Myanmar. So that's why our foreign investment is a little bit delayed, because especially small and medium farmers, especially in the livestock sector, they need some protection, because otherwise they cannot compete with the big players from the abroad when they come in, so they cannot survive.
The government of Bhutan will remain very supportive of the traditional smallholder mixed farming systems, but there is a need to really increase efficiency, to increase productivity from such kind of system.
But each sector has its own comparative advantage. Smallholding livestock farmer often they have low labor costs, they utilize the byproduct at very low price. But on the other hand, the large scale sector, they have better technology, better food safety system, better standard, and better distribution system. So in the end of the day, should we accept that we still have the 2 systems coexisting, or we should think about something more integrated system?
One thing it seems is missing is how to differentiate between smallholders and backyard. Because even within the smallholders, the business side is important, but still the self-sufficient is part of the operation.
Smallholder is very averse to risk, and rightly so. And we need public policy mechanisms to absorb that risk so that its capacity to invest into smallholder livestock enterprises increases. The other is to look specifically for where the markets are failing, so that the returns that they can get from their enterprises, they are not getting that, and hence they are caught into a low return, high risk scenario. And that's the role for public policy, to come in and identify that.
First of all is understanding risk, and how do we design policies, how do we design strategies that address this issue of risk, the inherent risk both that households face in managing their consumption and income, and then the market risk that they face once they expose themselves to the market. And then the second issue is incentives. How do we design incentives more smartly that will be able to get smallholders into the market, that will provide the right kinds of support?
We need to take this kind of smallholder consensus and develop a new evidence base, and together sort of create a voice that brings that back to the attention of policymakers and decision makers. There's so much experimentation going on in terms of organizational models for involving smallholders, and we haven't fully captured those opportunities. And then I think that will point us to where we need to can build on public-private partnerships, where the private sector can invest, but where we still need to have public investment to move things forward.
With regard to the environment, I think a little bit as opposed to what we discussed in terms of smallholders before, the problems here are rather new. They are acute, but they're rather new. And that what this brings with it is that there is not a lot of experience.
When we talk about risk today, we have to be very clear that in fact the traditional system of mixed crop farming systems, diverse crops, diverse species, actually today are your response strategies of the smallholder to the risks of climatic variation which we see today.
Environmental protection seems less priority to the livestock producers. Now, of course, as other experts mentioned already, there is a lack of incentives for those livestock producers to apply the good practice in or environmental friendly livestock production.
What seems to be critical is that we require sincere recognition and appreciation of the issues of climate change or environmental aspects at the government level, and that we need to get genuine political commitments from the national governments for mainstreaming environmental issues into our development plans and policies.
When we talk about the environmental effect of livestock production and all that, this has remained a very neglected area, and so there is a lot of research and activities, research projects is required to be undertaken to quantify first how much is the problem.
We are acutely aware that any environmental policy sort of needs to factor in the social circumstances under which this is taking place, because otherwise we run into the situation that sort of we take measures against smallholders simply because they may have a higher pollution or emission intensity than larger ones. This is clearly a situation we don't want, and this is why we need to discuss livestock environment policies in a broader context.
And these diseases, one always says they don't respect national borders, but they don't even necessarily respect species borders. So they can move from one species to the other. And what happens from the wildlife pool, they may go into the domestic pool. Domestic animals may be dead-end hosts, but domestic animals may be amplifying hosts, exposing humans. Humans can get infected. What can happen is that the pathogen develops the capacity to move from human to human transmission.
Reduce the burden of foodborne diseases is one place we should focus. Reduce risk of novel and emerging diseases, zoonosis in particular, and reduce microbial use. And in that context, some priorities were offered. To do this, we need a holistic approach, address the root causes, and undertake smart surveillance for early detection. In order to get this smart surveillance, we need to incentivize disease reporting. We need to collaborate across disciplines and across sector. And there we need to incentivize these actions, but also an enormous task of changing behavior with respect to the three health systems.
I think this particular dialogue is at a right stage because we are currently at crossroads. We need to have clear roadmap for future.
I completely support what Dr. Paroda said. I think this should be a beginning, and we should keep this momentum on and keep meeting.
So it is the duty of those all engaged in livestock production, policymakers, UN agencies like FAO, or those small-scale producers or extension workers, that we have to work together and help each other and unite ourselves to make sure that we will attain this target to meet the future demand.